Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to game number 3 between EG, DeMusliM, and MVP TAiLS from the Gigabyte Esports LAN Invitational held from June 15th to the 17th, I believe, or 16th to the 18th. I'm getting mixed up because this is actually a recast. I originally did this game and then accidentally deleted the videos because I thought I already had it uploaded. Turns out I didn't. And then I went and did game 1 of my next series, which you should check out, which is from DreamHack, which was held around the exact same time as this. So, I do know the result, but kind of vaguely. I mean, when I cast, I get into it, and then when the game's over, I don't really remember. I know who won, but I don't remember exactly how it went down. But I will tell you that this is a best-of-3 series from group play between the English Terran player at the top left of MLG Antigua Shipyard, and in a cross spawn is the Korean Protoss, spawned as the red Protoss on the bottom right of this same map. So this event has had a prize pool of $11,000. It did run in parallel to DreamHack, as I mentioned, so it had less viewership than it could have had, but it was still a fairly solid event with a lot of Korean players making a name for themselves in the international scene. So nonetheless, I will give you guys a slight little recap. Game number 1, DeMusliM took it. He was able to bottle up TAiLS off of 2 bases and with Marines and Marauders, and then TAiLS could not get a third expand going, and DeMusliM was just able to win outright. Even though TAiLS did get up to 3-3 upgrades, he was researching 3-3 when he lost. Then in game number 2, the rules were reversed, and TAiLS expanded quickly, but only had 3 gates off his 2 bases because he had not gotten his second nexus fully established yet. So he wasn't going to fire out a bunch of gateways if he wasn't unable to support them. So he had 3 gates, and he established a proxy pylon and was able to kill DeMusliM, who had fast expanded, with a nice rush, pretty much. He expanded and then he rushed, which was confusing for me, but effective because DeMusliM didn't expect it. So I personally am thinking both players are going to fast expand yet again. And you guys may know, I did cast this game before, but I actually have no idea. I don't remember. So, DeMusliM is just going to scout TAiLS' basic 1 gateway. He is producing a Zealot off of that, and actually another one queued. While DeMusliM looks like he's going to go for the fast expand. There he is, dropping that command center. So let's see when TAiLS decides to scout. It looks like he's moving out his Zealot now. I think he's just going to park it at the Zelnaga tower, but maybe he'll try to do some damage. So DeMusliM is probably going to drop down a bunker, and he does. So just go for that bunker expand. We do now have the Cybernetics Core on the way from TAiLS, and DeMusliM actually has no gases in his main. I was kind of confused before because he was building a barracks, but it was close enough to the Vespine Geyser to look like he was actually dropping a refinery, but he's not. Neither player, or actually no, TAiLS has taken his gas, the mandatory amount for Warp Gate, and he has it just on time, it seems. He is now dropping his Nexus, and DeMusliM is going to see this. He has scouted it, but TAiLS has not scouted his opponent's fast expand. He will now probably run in and see that. My apologies for the slight little laggy moment. Do not know why my hard drive is messing with me. But TAiLS does see it, so now that is a bonus for him. He knows that DeMusliM is going to definitely be favoring a macro style, which both players seem to like in this TVP matchup. TAiLS really big on upgrades in the early game. He gets out an extremely fast 2-2 and then 3-3. Not necessarily at the expense of his army value. He doesn't cut the amount of troops he produces in favor of upgrades. I mean, he does lose some, but not a significant amount, because the ones he does have pack a punch because they're upgraded. So, I mean, you can go both ways. You can go 2 base, 7 gate robo and just push hard with that, and then you can go just 2 base, 6 gate robo, or even 5 gate robo, and just get a Twilight Council and 2 forges. And I will have to set myself to busy just a moment there. I usually do it, forgot this time. So yeah, you can go for that Twilight Council and 2 forges off 2 bases and have less gateways and still the robo, but better upgraded units. So now TAiLS looks like he's just hanging this probe around here. He's probably going to drop a proxy pylon or even try to get further scouting. And there it is, proxy pylon going down. Pretty interesting choice of placement. He's not actually able to warp in on this high ground, so he could maybe even warp in Blink Stalkers and then blink up into the main, or I guess if he got Blink Stalkers, he could just blink twice. So meanwhile, in DeMusliM space, he does have 1 Rax researching stim pack, so he always gets the stim pack first. You'll see some players get a really fast concussive shells or combat shields, but no joking around here for DeMusliM. He's just going straight for stim pack. He's got a reactor on his second racks with a factory on the way, and now just producing a supply depot in front of his first bunker and a second one as well. Really wants to hold down that fort. I guess that's a pretty lucrative positioning on this bunker, but it looks like TAiLS is actually mobilizing a reasonably large force. He's got 4 stalkers and 1 zealot there and warping in additional reinforcements. He's also even ballsy enough to establish a proxy pylon here. If he's able to reinforce, that will give him a huge advantage in this battle. The second bunker does finish, but now a nice force field's preventing the SCVs from mass repairing, and it looks like this bunker will go down. The other one seems to be protected for now from TAiLS' own force fields, but he's going to try to kill some SCVs. Let's see if he's able to do some damage and maybe even snipe the natural. That would be a huge game changer if he were able to. So now here is DeMusliM forced to actually lift off his command center, so he's losing crucial mining time, all the while TAiLS, who has a 5 probe advantage, is just mining to his heart's content. Very low resources left over, which means he's just producing, warping in additional units here, but he's just kind of idle. He doesn't really want to push into this huge Terran bioforce. It looks like he's going to pull out, or maybe try to just inflict some additional harassment punishment. He loses his zealot there, and now the stim pack for DeMusliM is very, very close to finishing. That's about 35 seconds away. If he's able to hang on long enough, he'll definitely have a huge advantage if he can get a good stim and find this Protoss force out of position. So now TAiLS actually had his zealot on hold position, I believe, because it was just standing there while the stalker shot. So now DeMusliM actually briefly supply blocked, though his opponent, his aggressor, is now pulling back. And so there we go. That's that tech route I talked about in TAiLS' base. He's got the robotics facility with the Twilight Council coming right afterwards. And we'll probably drop double forges. His opponent does have an NG Bay researching weapons level 1. So DeMusliM is probably going to drop a second one and just keep his upgrades going. Both players like their upgrades. DeMusliM has kept a reasonable timing, especially because he has to balance that and his combat shields, concussive shells, and stim packs in the early game. So now we do see Blink coming from TAiLS. Interesting choice. If he can control his Stalker's Ball, that will definitely give him a huge advantage. If he's able to just catch a Terran clump of Terran units off guard, that would be extremely useful for him. And now TAiLS is just producing a second observer, even though DeMusliM does have a missile turret on the way. I'm not sure if our Protoss player knows that. No, he's actually just flying into the main, so he's probably going to try to blink up into the main and inflict some punishment. That would be extremely powerful, because especially against Terran opponents, because Terran players cannot reinforce too well. I mean, all their production facilities, if you know what I mean, their whole force. Terran bio-armies are very strong, but if they're caught out of position, it's very easy for Protoss with a lot of Blink Stalkers to just pick off these reinforcements. Whereas if you're a Protoss player and you have like 7 gates, you can warp them all into one place and probably take out the harassment. But there's some pretty nice force fields there from TAiLS, but he's not actually able to kill too many Marines. But hey, a few is better than nothing. We do now have combat shields finishing, in addition to weapons level 1. No upgrades yet, actually, from TAiLS. He is now dropping double forges, so there we go. That will definitely be on the way fairly soon. Here is his forces. He's got 4 sentries in there with 3 zealots and a hell of a lot of Blink Stalkers, just trying to force DeMusliM back, maybe even catch him off guard with some clutch force fields. He is now going for the charge upgrade, which is kind of negates kiting. I actually said this exact thing in game 1. It negates kiting, but hey, I'm a man of repetitious vocabulary. So we do now see armor level 1 on the way from DeMusliM, but TAiLS is going to probably be immediately researching his 1-1. His charge is on the way, as I mentioned before. Now concussive shells for DeMusliM, so it has taken him a while to get there. Very, very fast upgrade, just 60 in-game seconds. So there is 1-1 on the way from TAiLS, and he's getting his Templar archives. And also has actually 4 zealots here just trying to defend any potential drops. Very, very nicely chosen there from TAiLS. A lot of people will tell you that in late game TVP you have to choose between Colossi and High Templar, and it seems as though TAiLS is going the High Templar route. Very, very powerful with Storms, and Archons are also potent. Here's DeMusliM now moving in, probably just going to pick off some pylons on the high ground. He did also do that in game number 1, just to supply block his opponent here. He's got some of his Marauders firing their Punisher grenades uphill here, and they're actually going to supply block TAiLS for quite a while, because he only now has 2 pylons producing, so that's going to take him about 20 more in-game seconds before he's finished. Now it seems as though DeMusliM is going to check for a third, and he sees it and denies it, but he himself has not actually established one. So he's not necessarily economically ahead. He's actually 8 harvesters behind, but if we count mules, it's fairly even, I suppose. Now 1-1, close to finishing for TAiLS, so I think he'll just want to hold on, force field, and just hang back. He's got a ton of charge watts, and just wait for his 1-1 to finish, and then as soon as it does, he will likely be able to hold off this aggression from DeMusliM, who was able to keep him bottled up in game number 1. If a repeat of that occurs, then TAiLS is not going to be in good standing. DeMusliM now building his 3rd, so it's still going to be a while before the advantage grows, but the more time that TAiLS is bottled up, the greater the advantage for DeMusliM. So there's so many charge watts here. They're all going to die, but an aggressive blink will allow TAiLS with 1-1 upgrades to force his opponent back. He's now producing an Immortal probably to just take out some Marauders. Immortals are, I would argue, a hard counter to Marauders, but Marines are a fairly hard counter to Immortals, so it all balances out. Now, a lot of charge loss lost there for TAiLS, but he's still able to force back DeMusliM if he can catch some of his forces with force fields, which he does, killing a lot of Marines and Marauders. Look at the bloodshed right there. So DeMusliM, it seems as though he will be forced back. Let's check our army supply value. Actually a 16 supply advantage, but a lot of that is in reinforcements that are not here in the fight. So we'll have to say it's roughly even. Now 2-2 on the way from TAiLS, actually ahead of his opponent, and he's bringing a probe up to probably reestablish his 3rd. So I would argue he should pull back here, which he does. One Stalker does die, the poor lad. But now TAiLS going to establish that 3rd Nexus. And destructible rocks left unattended here, but I think TAiLS is going to try to put on some pressure. He should try to put on some pressure because his 3rd was denied, so he can likely guess that his opponent is going to have a 3rd almost ready and just hit him hard with Blink Stalkers. That's where the upgrade is especially useful. It's just harassment pressure. So 2-2 still not on the way from DeMusliM because he doesn't have an armory. He does now have it producing, about halfway done or so, getting that 2nd engine bay so he can just fire out both his armor and weapons at once. Now actually 2 Archons coming from TAiLS. We saw this in game number 1. He got a lot of Archons before and actually negated to get Storm Research, which I would argue against, but I guess it takes a long time to get Storm. It takes a total of 110 seconds, 55 if you're constantly chronoing it, because yes, it does operate 50% faster. I always mix up my numbers on Chrono Boost. I always think it operates 20% faster for 50 seconds or 50% faster for 20 seconds. The latter is correct. So now let's see, our harvester count is still close. 11 difference actually, but like I said, mules do kind of balance things out for Terran players. But TAiLS is going to see this, so that's crucial. And now he's going to mobilize his force. The army supply value is not too close. We got almost a 17 supply gap actually. And we're going to see a Ghost Academy coming from DeMusliM, so that's a common counter to High Templar and Archons. So there's only Archons on the field here for our Protoss player, but if he decides to get Storms, he does have now 2 more High Templar just warped in. I don't know if he's going to morph them into an Archon or if he's going to actually try to research Storm. Nope, he will morph them. So he does have his 3-3 on the way. So like I said, it's 18 minutes into the game, and he's got his 3-3 research coming. I don't know if we'll actually get shields after this, but that's definitely a viable upgrade for Protoss. It just makes them even stronger in battle, of course. So his 3-3 is about 10 seconds shy of halfway done. Meanwhile, the 2-2 of DeMusliM is halfway, and he's now getting Caduceus Reactor, Mobius Reactor. Caduceus is for Medivacs. So as soon as he can get those ghosts out, he's going to wait for this to be about halfway done. Depends on the ghost production time. Takes about 40 seconds. So as soon as this is halfway done, he'll be able to produce some ghosts so that they get the extra energy. We will probably be seeing them fairly soon. Now these destructible rocks are going to be eliminated. For TAiLS, he's probably going to get something of a 4th base, which has been unforeseen in this series. Apart from game number 1, DeMusliM did get a 4th. And now these Archons, just fucking badass. I have to say the Archon is among my favorite units in the game. Just because it's bonus against biological, and just because it looks so sick. Like, who doesn't want to just chill with an Archon? That thing it's awesome. Like, it honestly is. And its attack, I always loved its attack animation in StarCraft Brood War and StarCraft 1, but it's even sicker now. So now DeMusliM is forced to stim up, and now he just pulls out, realizing he does not want to engage that entire intimidating force. He's going to scan and see what he's up against. And so there's a lot of bunkers here, but DeMusliM actually has no troops in it. But TAiLS does not want to engage here. I'm not sure if DeMusliM actually has too many ghosts on the field. He does actually have a handful, and they do have enough energy for EMPs. but if they're only EMPing the Zealots, that's not exactly what they want to do. It's definitely the Archons are priority targets, and even Immortals. So now Zealots, Charge Rots coming in from the opposite side of DeMusliM's third, and just forcing him to engage on two sides. TAiLS just trying to get a really strong positional engagement. So there's the ever-menacing Terran Bio Ball. Marine Marauders have been potent since the very release of the game. Even in the beta, I remember watching my brother used to play Terran, then switch to Zerg. I always would watch him with fascination in the beta, just playing with those two units. But anyways, we do now have an engage. A lot of the Archons dying as they're pulling out, so it looks like TAiLS is going to lose a lot of his units, but he's actually gotten Storm. My apologies for not noticing that. He's gotten Storm and inflicted a lot of damage with those Storms, weakening the Terran Bio forces, and now TAiLS has actually blinked into DeMusliM's space. He's slaughtering SCVs here. There's actually a total of 38 and counting lost, so DeMusliM is just going to have to push out and try to kill TAiLS outright. That's pretty much his only hope here. Robotics Bay just did now finish for TAiLS, so DeMusliM's economy is getting closer and closer to a standstill. He has very, very few mining SCVs. Only 14 Harvesters alive to 62, so DeMusliM is going to kill his opponent's third, but he's going to get stormed pretty heavily here, trying to EMP a High Templar. Actually, no, he snipes it. My apologies. Wrong spell. So TAiLS, bad engage. He was pulling right here, and a lot of his Archons got caught off guard and fell. But he's done so much damage with these Blink Stalkers. DeMusliM really hasn't had an answer to it, and now TAiLS is going to pull back the bulk of this force because he knows he has to defend here. He pops up a Guardian Shield. He just wants to really make sure that he gets a good, strong defensive engage. He actually storms 3 times, severely weakening all the bio forces. It's going to take all the medevacs a very long time to heal them all. And there's now the Stalkers coming in. It's a Protoss sandwich. Yum, yum. Not so tasty for DeMusliM, though. He's going to lose all of his forces here. Probes initially pulled off the line to try to finish off these ghosts. Then they pull back, just realizing, hey, this is done for. I don't need to take out all these Terran forces. Now a medevac picked off with 2, I believe it was ghosts in it. So that is a very expensive loss for DeMusliM. He's now getting Cloak because his opponent does have detection, but I don't think in his own base. He just has a fairly decent observer spread around his opponent's base. That's exactly what he has. Random Idle Archon there. So yeah, he has an observer around his 4th location. So he actually has no detection. So if this Cloak can finish, and if DeMusliM can just get some EMPs, maybe even go for like a nuke or something, just to go all in, because he only has 3 ghosts and 8 medevacs left. That is not at all enough to deal with these Protoss forces. There's still some stray Stalkers, just with those 3/3 upgrades. No shields researching from TAiLS, but I think the advantage is clear cut, and the game is pretty much his at this point, because the amount of SCVs killed. Like, I mean, sit here, look at that number on your right, and just have your jaw drop. But then again, DeMusliM did kill a lot at the third because they were all just hopelessly massacred. But look at that, 26-9. I mean, we're 24 minutes into the game. If you saw this without seeing the beginning, you'd probably be hysterical. Why do you have 8 Harvesters and we are 20? We're definitely long into the late game now. So TAiLS reestablishing his third, and it seems as though DeMusliM has no intention of doing so. He only has 1 command center up, and a second one now just landing to mine. There's even a probe here that's just seeing all of this, so TAiLS can just pull his forces out and take that whole base out. But there is the finished robotics bay here, and if we look at DeMusliM's composition, it's entirely Marines and Ghosts. Definitely susceptible to Colossi, because the EMPs will be so-so against the Colossus shields, but there's no Vikings on the field, and DeMusliM has marginal resources. I don't even think he has the kind of... Yes, he does have the tech to produce Vikings, but he will not be able to get enough out in time to actually be able to kill off any Colossi. So I think if I'm TAiLS, definitely switch to the Colossus tech route, because DeMusliM is done for if he fights that without Vikings, and he has no real methods of doing so except for this 1 reactor at Starport, which will probably soon fall to the Stalkers. They are getting closer and closer to supply blocking him here with the supply depot by killing it. And so observer spread here from TAiLS is going to tell him just that there's a base and a lot of barracks with no add-ons. And this orbital command even lifted off. I don't know if it was forced to do that by any zealots or something of the sort. Here's just a random stray Marine hanging about. So there's extended thermal lance on the way, and likely Colossus to follow. Actually, surely Colossus to follow, because who would research and upgrade for a unit they're not going to get? So now this robotics bay just kind of, it's like a hand, right? It's touching its own palm. I've always been fascinated by that one animation. 3 fingers are just poking in, making sure that those lances will be extended and thermal, keeping you warm in the winter and keeping your Marines warm in the winter after they're dead. So now 2 Colossi on the way, actually 2 Robos. There's a nice feedback on 1 Ghost, but a High Templar does die to snipe, and there is actually an observer on the field for TAiLS, I believe, with this force, because he's been able to kill the Ghosts. But there was actually a storm from a High Templar on a cloaked Ghost. Pretty interesting choice. I think TAiLS had an observer in the battle, and then DeMusliM scanned, killed the observer, and had pretty cloaked Ghosts for a few seconds before when was stormed. Now here's the Colossus about to get its extended thermal lance upgrade, and so that's really going to be the game-winning factor, I think, for TAiLS. He's already double the population. He has 22 more harvesters, which is significant, even though he has very low income at this point in the game. Has no intention of recreating those harvesters because he has no need to. He's got 3 Archons and 2 Colossi, and now even storming all those Marines. Look at that, the Marine Bakery. He's got the observer as well. I was thinking of the observatory from Brood War. But anyways, there's another storm there on the Marines. All the medevacs going down. Well, not all of them, just I believe a pair of them falling to the sentries and Archons. But look at those poor Marines. Their commander left the game, so they're forced to stand there idly and just die. So there we go. Both of our players have left the game. DeMusliM has called the GG, and now both of our observers have left the game. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this series. It was very close. Interesting that DeMusliM went up 1-0 and then lost the next 2 games. Anyways, you will see a PvP series after this one. Catch